everybody, and welcome back to Green and Gorgeous. I am Hales, joined here as always with Tori, and tonight we have a very special guest. So we are not live tonight, but we are so grateful that this guest has agreed to do this with us, and we are joined tonight by Mrs. Nicole Campbell. How are you today, Nicole?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good. Thank you. So we want to get to know you a little bit, of course. Can you tell us where you're from?
I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, just across the border, so it's not far from home, which is nice.
So you're already used to the cold and everything.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever get used to it, but it's everyday life, I guess.
I think that's one thing that I think about is just like how cold it is in Wisconsin. And I'm like, oh, I hope she's from somewhere where it's cold and you're not just going from somewhere where it's warm to the freezing cold.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You can't even, like, honestly, if you haven't experienced like the winters up in like Minnesota or Wisconsin, it will take your breath away, like literally take it away.
Yeah. When we first got here last year, I was sitting next to somebody at training camp and they were like, did you know that Wisconsin's actually warmer than Minnesota? And I'm like, how? But
they're literally right next door.
Yeah, but I am kind of believing it because right now it's like a winter storm in Minnesota and it was like rainy and like 40 here today. So I'm kind of believing him a little bit.
So it's funny that you say that because my boyfriend is from Nebraska, and so
I'm a diehard Nebraska fan.
Okay, so is he. So we're like going through it this year with the Huskers.
Yes.
But it is so much colder in Nebraska than it is in Kansas City, and I was like, it can't be. We're 2 hours away from Nebraska. But it is.
Yeah, no, it's strange how close we are, but how the climate is just a tad bit different.
It's like, it is a difference though between like Wisconsin and Minnesota. I definitely feel like Minnesota's got more of that like bite to your face kind of cold because like I don't know if it's the lakes or something because there's a ton of lakes in Wisconsin too. There's actually more in Wisconsin than Minnesota. So like I have no idea, but it's
I feel like freezing. It's windier here in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Which makes it worse.
Definitely. That wind is no joke. When it's cold outside, it's the worst.
Yeah.
I'm like, put ointment on your face, kid, before you go outside. Your face is going to get chapped.
Aquaphor everywhere.
Yes, always. Okay. So how did you and Devondre meet?
We met when he was in college playing at the University of Minnesota. He used to come in to my job all the time. And one day he finally had the courage to speak to me. And 8 years later and 3 kids, here we are.
Hey, there you go.
What was your job?
I managed a few nightclubs in Minneapolis.
Oh, which ones though? I know the nightclubs out there. So I get excited when people talk about Minnesota because it's like homey for me. I don't get that here.
I know how that feels. So I managed at Cream and Spin nightclub, Club New York, and then my last club was Dream nightclub.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know those places, but
you can just pretend.
Yeah. Unfortunately, none of them are open anymore, but they're pretty fun.
Yeah.
It must have been because you weren't the manager anymore or something. They must have.
Maybe what I like to think, yeah.
I know that we talked a little bit before we started recording tonight about your guys' charity. So can you tell us what your charity is and what you guys do with that?
Yeah, so it's the Devondre Campbell Youth Family Foundation. We kind of try to target youth that are at risk in communities that, don't have all the resources that other communities would have. So we put on a football camp back in Fort Myers, where Devondre's from. We do a Christmas event, what we're doing right now. We adopt families. And this year is the most families we've ever adopted, which is 25. And my heart is just so happy that we were able to adopt 25 families with the help of his teammates and our friends back in Minneapolis. And we have never given a car away. And so we have a family that has a car on their list. So we are raising money to try to get them a car. And other big items like washer and dryer sets, just kind of stuff that I think some of us may take for granted that some people don't have. So we're
No,
just
definitely. That's awesome.
we're just really trying to, make these families' holidays something truly special and rememberable. So
Absolutely. That's really awesome that you guys do that. I personally tell my son every year for his birthday and Christmas, you have to give away toys to get toys.
Yes.
So we just cleaned out his room, and I have a whole box and a whole trash bag full of toys that he will be taking to donate. So that way he knows, that he has a good life, and there are kids that don't get toys like that. And so I want him, to know that that's important. So I think that's really awesome that you guys are doing that.
Yeah. And, one of the reasons why we kind of started doing this is we want our kids to grow up knowing how blessed they are to be in the situation that they are in. Our youngest two, they're kind of too young to kind of get the idea, but our 7-year-old, she's kind of catching on and learning about it, because like you guys, we make our kids get rid of their toys before birthdays, after birthdays, before Christmas, after Christmas. And the question always comes up, Mommy, why am I doing this? And I've been explaining it to her. If I showed you my house right now, it looks like Santa's workshop, because I have all of these families' gifts, ready to be given to them next week. But, she's asking about them. So I'm telling her, I'm not hiding it from her, I'm being very honest with her about it. And I think by me being honest about it, she's kind of having a soft spot in her heart for it, which that's the goal that we wanted. So
that's so awesome. Like, I really love that. It's so nice. Like, I came from a family that didn't really get a ton of things, but we were able to make do. And like, there was always some out there. So we'd be donating every Christmas and birthday for sure. Mainly because I think my mom didn't want a giant buildup of all these toys. But like, it makes you feel so much better, I feel like, when you're giving those things out than when you're getting things yourself. And especially when it's someone that's in need like that, it's just such a good feeling.
Yeah. And, it's, for me, when I meet the parents of these families, just seeing the smiles on their face, and it's like a sense of relief of, okay, I can enjoy this holiday season without being stressed out, without having to worry. And that's what I enjoy, because the holidays are about being happy and being with your family and not having to stress. And, and I feel like the holidays bring the most stress.
For sure.
So just being able to do that is why I do it. I love being able to help the parents. Obviously the kids play a big role in it too, but for me it's helping take the stress off of the parents.
Oh yeah. That's probably a really stressful time of the year, like you said, for everyone, and even more for the parents, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you said that you guys have a family with a car on their list this year, and that you guys are raising money to make that, wish come true for them, I literally got chills on my body.
I know. I have like goosebumps.
That's so awesome that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, I when I saw the list, I was like, oh, I don't know, is this too big, of a challenge for us to take on? And I talked to the guy that helps us run our foundation. He's absolutely amazing. And he's like, we can do it. And so I'm like, Mike, this will be the first year that we've done this. And he's like, we can do it. We got this. So I'm really excited that we are going to be able to make this happen, because, it's reading her story and just, reading about what she's going through. And, it's touching. So if we can help, we're gonna.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I do want to go ahead and show a picture of the GoFundMe that is set up. here. And then we will also post a link so that way you guys can go ahead and donate to this. I believe I read that you guys are matching donations. Is that correct?
Yes. So whatever we raise in the GoFundMe, me and Devondre are going to match it.
Okay. So there is a picture of the GoFundMe. And then, like I said, we will go ahead and copy and paste that link so that way people can go ahead and donate to that as well and help spread the word for you guys as well.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like we said, we think it's really awesome that you guys do that and that you're giving back to the community. I know that I might be speaking personally when I say that since Devondre got here, I feel like he's just somebody that's really humble and seems like a really good person. So my dad jokes. I told my dad that we were doing this interview with you, and he was like, "Of course, with a linebacker's wife, because I've always got a soft spot for the linebacker." And so he was like, "That's your guy," because I just love our linebackers. But I really do feel like, Devondre's a good person, and obviously I don't know him personally, but just from what I've seen. And then you as well. When I reached out to you, I was like, I really love what I see. Like when you do post on social media, I'm like, you're just so positive and supportive of people. So that's really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, he is a very humble human being. Sometimes people in his position could definitely get a big head or, just act completely differently, but he's very humble. He never takes anything for granted. If you talk to him before training camp, he's going in there as if he were a rookie. Yeah. So, he's a very humble human being. And that's one thing that I do love about him. There's many things I love about him, but that's one of them.
I can only imagine. I was so excited this year when I saw that he got captain. I was like, yes, he deserves that. That is so cool.
I loved watching him so much last year, so I was so excited for that.
Yeah, when he got voted captain this year, he's quiet. But when he speaks, it's from his heart and it's something meaningful to him. So when he does speak, I feel like people listen because he doesn't speak a lot. He's very quiet. And when we first started dating, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work because you don't talk.
It's that opposites attract thing, right?
Yeah, but now he just chatters all the time with me. So I'm like, okay, it worked. Thank God. But yeah, so I was very proud of him because it speaks a lot for what the team thinks of him and the respect that they do have for him. So it's nice to see.
Absolutely, especially with him. He had the free agency last year or the year before. I'm sorry. And, you don't know where you're going to end up. And then for him to come to Green Bay and just within a year, be voted captain, I think that does speak very highly of him and what the teammates do think of him. And back to that free agency, can you tell us from your point of view what that was like? I can't imagine.
So the first time around when we were leaving Atlanta, when we signed with Arizona, it was stressful. But he signed with Arizona sooner that year. It was like within like the first 3 days, I think, of free agency opening that year. Then the year that we came here from Arizona, that was stressful. We were getting married that year as well. So we got married in May. And obviously free agency opened up in March. He had a lot of calls, but none of them were ideal for him. None of them were, he didn't feel like they were a good landing spot for him. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I'm just going to wait it out. I'm going to wait it out. I'm like, okay, well then our wedding was approaching. So I had that stress and I was worrying about that. And it's kind of funny because the day we were doing our rehearsal is when his agent called, like in the middle of it. And he was on the phone about the Packers. So I was like, can we do this on Monday?
Yeah, right. Can we push this off? I got other things in my mind. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's stressful. And I think it's definitely stressful on the significant other, especially when you have kids, because you're like, okay, I have to uproot my family now, find a place to live, find schools, all that type of stuff. But the stress that I watched him go through, I think it was harder on me because I can't do anything. I can't speed up the process. I can't make the process happen. It's just a waiting game. And I think that was the hardest part for me. Just watching him, go through the stress of free agency. So luckily the Packers made it so we don't have to worry about that this year.
That's good. Did
Yeah.
you kind of like that it was with Wisconsin since you grew up in Minnesota and that was like so close to home kind of for you?
Yeah, so last year when he signed with the Packers, I was like, okay, not so bad. So we made the decision to me and the kids would stay back in Minnesota and he would, move to Green Bay, obviously, because we didn't want to uproot our kids again for another 1-year contract because we didn't know what was going to happen. So I stayed in Minnesota with the kids and we came up on game days and holidays. We thought that was going to be the easiest thing, and it was it was so hard. It was so hard going back and forth with the kids, and it was hard being away from him. Our kids really missed him, and he really missed our kids, and me too, I would hope. But it sounded great at the time, and then doing it, we're like, this was horrible. We're never doing this again. So I'm very happy that we got put in a position to be able to make Green Bay our second home.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome for us. That's awesome for you guys.
Yeah.
Very glad to hear that.
So you said that you come like when you guys were in Minnesota. First, I have to ask, were you a Vikings fan growing up?
I do need to know.
I was. Let me just clarify. I am a diehard Nebraska fan and college football. I love college football. Yes, I rooted for the Vikings. Yes, I rooted against the Packers.
We'll let it slide.
Yes. But I think, I think with the success that he had last year and, the way everything has panned out, the Packers definitely will always have a special place in both of our hearts. They changed our lives, and watching the success that he had last year, I mean, I was unbelievably proud. So, everyone's like, so are you a Packer fan now? And I was like, I am a Packer fan, and I will probably cheer for them when we're not here. But yes, I was a Vikings fan, and as it being my hometown team, I do want them to do well. But when it comes to them losing for, the sake of our season, I definitely cheer against them.
Can I ask, how did you become a Nebraska fan then?
So my whole family is from Nebraska. So I grew during the summer, I would spend the summers with my grandparents. We have a farm there. So I was there for every holiday. It was my second home. So I think when your family is from Nebraska, you are born a Nebraska fan. You don't really have a choice. Yeah. So, I grew up watching it, and I was a lot worse before I met Devondre. I would wear red on Saturdays when I went to work. My whole staff would have to wear red. I lost the phone on
whole
my game.
Staff.
Yeah. So, but yeah, my family, is from there, and we actually have land in Nebraska. So it's just one of those things that I grew up, and I'll never not be a Nebraska fan, no matter how bad they are.
I do feel like you're right 100% on that. If you're born in Nebraska, you're immediately a Huskers fan. There's no changing it.
Yeah. It's funny because, he went to the U of M, so we have a huge rivalry between the two of us because he played at the U of M and they're in the Big Ten. And so it's pretty fun when leading up to the week before the game, I'll hang Nebraska stuff around the house, and then I'll come by and it's on the floor in the trash or something. So it's pretty fun.
Oh, that's hilarious. My boyfriend's a Cowboys fan, and obviously I'm a Packers fan.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing around here with Cowboys and Packers stuff. When we beat the Cowboys, we did not talk the rest of the night. I was I'm just gonna go to bed now. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, when me and Devondre first started dating, I went to Lincoln for the Minnesota-Nebraska game. Minnesota beat Nebraska, and I went talk to him for like a day and a half. I was like, I don't want anything to do with you right now. This is all your fault.
There was so in Kansas City, my husband is like a huge Chiefs fan. And so there was a couple years where there was a possibility of the Chiefs and the Packers in a Super Bowl. And like I told him, like, we would not be watching that game like in the same household by any means. We would need to be in separate households for that.
I would need you to do whatever you did the whole season for us to get to the Super Bowl. So if that meant watching the Super Bowl with Jared, you would unfortunately have to watch the Super Bowl with Jared.
I know. I wouldn't be able to stand it though.
I know. I know how that. Trust me, when I was back home for the Minnesota game for the first game of the season, I was sitting there, and everyone I know. Well, no, I take that back. A majority of our friends are Vikings fans, but there are a lot of Packer fans in Minnesota. And I always joke, I'm like, dude, Packer fans like come put something in the water over here, because like if you talk to people, you're like, why are you a Packer fan? They're like, I don't know, I just grew up one, but I'm from here. And I'm like, okay, whatever,
Well, my story is because my dad's from Green Bay. And so I think like when you're, like you were saying, like you're born into the Nebraska fan. So if you have a family member that's a Packers fan, you are a Packers fan. Like you are raised a Packers fan. Yeah. And so like, I think that's just kind of what happened with Wisconsin and Minnesota being so close. Cause I was never the only Packers fan in the room. There was always at least another person in there cheering for them.
Oh yeah. But so, going to the game this year back in Minnesota, I was just sitting there and I was like, I don't know if I want to come back to Minnesota and like go to the game. It's like, I don't know. I don't like it because I'm sitting around all my friends and I'm like, I love you to death, but you're cheering for the wrong team right now. And
Lambeau Field's better no matter what Vikings fans say.
100% agree.
Like we're not pumping fake snow in our stadium. It's real.
Or the horn. The horn has to be the worst sound in sports.
It's a loud stadium. It is a very loud stadium. I like to go to a few away games, and I went to the Seattle game one year when we were in Atlanta, and that's a loud stadium. And the Minnesota stadium is pretty loud. It is not an environment I would want to play a football game in.
Have you been to Kansas City?
I say don't go to Arrowhead.
So funny story. So we had a friend who played for the Chiefs, and it was the playoff game that they beat Houston, and that was first.
That was a big one.
Yeah. So that was Devondre's first NFL game that he hadn't played in. So we went to Kansas City. Yeah, and we had him tailgating and everything. And he was like, "This is what you do before games," and I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that he just like doesn't know is like hilarious.
Yeah. There's like been a few times this season where I think I've left for the game before he has to go tailgate.
And tailgating is such a fun part of it, like especially at like Lambeau Field. Like that is so iconic out there. So I'm going out there in December. I'm so excited to tailgate out there. I've been waiting years for this.
That's so fun. Yeah. So whenever we have friends come in town, I'm always like, okay, you got to get the full experience. So we have to go tailgate. So I make them come tailgate. I got to give my friends in Lot 1 a shout out because they are the ones that make tailgating, I think, the best and in Green Bay. And I met them last year. First game of the season, I didn't know anybody on the team, so I was by myself, and it was a night game, so I didn't have my kids, and they were sitting next to me, and now we're really good friends, and we talk Packer football. I never thought I was going to say that ever, but they're really genuinely nice people, and they open their arms to me to come to their tailgate, and we have a really good time.
That's awesome. I feel like that's, a lot of people in Green Bay. So in Kansas City, of course, you tailgate like in the parking lot. But in Green Bay, you're tailgating for the most part in people's yards and like parking in people's yards and going to the bathroom in people's houses that you've never met before. So I feel like, Green Bay has really good people for the most part.
Yes, that
I
is one
mean,
thing that we said last year when we got here is like everyone is very genuine,
mhm.
and nice. And everyone says, "Oh, Minnesota nice." I'm like, that's not real.
It's
Like,
not real.
no, it is not. It's like the fakest thing ever. But here, like people are genuinely nice and like willing to help you and like
Mhm.
just offering their services to you. And I'm like, are you sure or are you scamming me? Because okay. So
So it's really funny that you say that. So I sell insurance and I'm obviously in Kansas. And so I was licensed like in Kansas and Missouri. And then my job has me working the East Coast. So I would post on Twitter and be like, hey, if you're in these states, like, and want some insurance, I can help you. Well, then all these people from Wisconsin were like, well, if you're licensed in Wisconsin, I'll get insurance from you just because like you're on Twitter. And so now I'm licensed in Wisconsin selling insurance to people in Wisconsin just because I'm a Packers fan that they saw on Twitter. I'm like, it's just so crazy.
They will, like, Packers fans will do like what they can to help someone out. Like, even if it's not very much, like they will do everything they can to help you.
yeah, and I love that. I think that it's the one thing I love about Green Bay. So growing up in the city, it's fast paced, a million things going on. You don't have that small town feel. And
Mhm.
going back to Nebraska, like the town that we have land in and where my grandparents are from and my family, it's a town of like 500 people. So
Mhm.
I've always loved like the small farm towns. So coming to Green Bay and having that small town feel and just, you know, everyone just being very genuine. It's like, oh, okay, it's comforting and it's nice.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So of course we know that you tailgate whenever you go to the games, and sometimes you beat Dre out of the house.
Yeah.
Do you have any game day rituals? Like, I'm very superstitious. I'm pretty sure Tori is too. We talk about it sometimes. But do you have anything that you do?
Okay, so I just started noticing that I've been doing this probably his whole career, but I wake up super early and I start organizing my house like I'm gonna sit and watch the game at my house. I don't know why, but I find myself like organizing my kitchen, putting the kids' stuff away, just making sure the house is kept up. And then it's time for me to get in the shower and get ready for the game. And I'm like, okay, well, that was, I got a head start on Monday, but I just recently started noticing that I do this every game. Like, and it's not even not just on the Sunday games. It's like the Thursday game, the Sunday game, the Sunday nights game, the Monday night games. Like, I don't know why I do it, but I do it. And I don't know if it's because I'm like, I feel like I'm losing a day of like cleaning my house
Yeah.
and doing stuff,
It's a
but
full day thing, like especially with tailgating and stuff. Like it's a full day thing that you're doing.
it is, yes. So I'm always like, oh, I got to get a jump start on things for Monday.
So I want to know. I think we were all pretty excited last year when Dre was All Pro. I want to know what your reaction was to that, because he was the first Packers linebacker to be voted first team All Pro since 1966.
Yeah, I was extremely proud of him. So I was getting my hair done in Minnesota and I was on Twitter and it just popped up and I was like, is this real? And I text them and I was like, how could you not tell me that you made it pro? Like, wow. And then, I'm like in tears, like in my stylist chair. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, Dre just made all pro. And she's like, what's that? She has no idea. And so he was in practice and he's like, I didn't even know. After he called me after practice, he's like, I didn't know. He's like, I found out in practice. So we kind of found out at the same time. And I was driving home and I cried, just watching him go through the process of being, on a couple different teams,
Mhm.
the growth. Sorry, it's raining really loud here and I couldn't figure out what that was. I'm sorry. But just the growth that he has had over the last 7 years, not just on the field, but off the field too, as a husband and a father. And it was just, that was the one thing that he always said that would mean everything to him. And that was his goal. And he achieved it. And so just watching him, continuously work hard and sound out all the other noise and get to that point of reaching all pro. Like, I was very proud, and I still am very proud. Like, I still get teary eyed talking about it. Just, it's a huge accomplishment. And he's always felt that he was one of the best linebackers in the league. And last year he went out there and he proved it. So
he did. He
yeah.
really did. I
Yeah.
mean, Twitter sometimes is a very negative place. I'm sure that you see things that are said about any player, but especially whenever it's your husband. And so I was really happy that I'm always really happy when somebody talks bad about a player and then they come out and like show them why that they're wrong, basically. And Devondre was one of those players that I was really excited about because people were like, well, he was with the Falcons and he was with the Cardinals, and then and I'm just like, no, he's really good, and you're all gonna sit and watch, and he's gonna prove all of you wrong. And then he did. And then to see him be all pro as well, that was really awesome, especially his first year as a Packer.
No, I 100% agree with you. I read things on Twitter, and there are a few times where my best friend has had to take my phone because I
imagine that being so hard for you.
Yeah, I've had a response written out, and then, I delete it and I go back to watching the game or doing whatever I'm doing. But it is hard to read those things because I think that sometimes people forget that they are also human. And not to sound cliche like I'm talking to my kids, but they have feelings and emotions.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's hard because me as his wife, I watch him get up every morning, grind. Sometimes he's sick. Sometimes he's battling, a little injury or, just fighting through things that, the public doesn't know. And so it is hard, kind of to see that, because it's like, well, you don't know what he's, going through. He's practicing his butt off and, just like everybody else in the NFL. And I think we can all agree that people are going to have bad days, but I think in this job, you get criticized for it a lot more.
It's just more public and stuff. And so people are terrible sometimes.
Yeah, so it is hard. But last year, he shut up all the haters that, had anything to say, and he proved everybody wrong. So I was proud.
That is always the best.
Yeah.
I would be proud too. There's, you said earlier that he doesn't talk a lot. And I was thinking earlier, I'm like, I really don't hear him say much, But one thing that I do remember him saying recently was that Jordan Love was a good quarterback. And that comes back to how people have really negative things to say and people didn't like the draft pick or whatever. And I think that they let that get in the way of, that Jordan Love does have really good capabilities and he is a really good quarterback. So for Dre to speak on that, to me, I thought that was really nice of him. I mean, I don't know if nice would be the right word. It was nice, but, I think it was really cool to hear him say those words.
I think he's just speaking his truth and what he sees every day. I mean, at the end of the day, Dre goes up against him every day in practice. So if anybody knows, I mean, it's going to be him. And, I think that Dre is a person that gives credit where credit is due. He's never going to take anything away from anybody. And I think, he was speaking his truth on that. And I think, I know that he firmly believes that. So, it's just him speaking his truth. So.
Yeah. He just seems like a really good guy. I know I've said that a couple times, but he really does. He seems like he just cares about everybody, Yeah.
I like to, when I talk about him, as a player, he's a player's player. He cares about his teammates. when, new guys come in, he, was right there to help them. And I think that comes from when he was a rookie, coming into Atlanta. You know, when you're a rookie, it's hard. You don't know what you're gonna get out of people. But
Yeah.
luckily, Dre, as a rookie, he had a lot of vets that surrounded him and helped him. And I think he is taking that on now, as this being his 7th year in, with just helping people around him to be better, because if the people around him are better, he's going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a player's player. He's a team player. So he just, if somebody needs help, he's going to help them. And he's also the person, though, that's also going to tell you when you're wrong and you made a mistake, which I think is great, because everybody needs constructive criticism, and needs to,
Absolutely.
Yeah, as long as it's like in the right way and you're not just dogging them. If you're doing it to actually see some improvement, like
yeah.
criticism is good.
Yeah, he's gonna tell you to help you. So, I respect that, because he does that in our relationship. So,
Yeah. It's very important to have that, I will say.
yeah.
So we've talked enough about Dre, I think. I do have one last question for you. I want to know what your reaction to the pick six was.
Wow. A lot of screaming, and just keep going. Like, I just kept screaming at the TV, "Go, Dre, go, go, go!" And then I started crying. And I always text him during the game, even though I know he's not going to get it, but just in the moment texting him. So that was a long time coming, let me tell you. That's always one of the things I tell him before a game. I give him the goals, and that's always been on our sheet. But it was a long time coming, and I was proud of him. I was so happy, so excited, and just proud, and tears and screaming. I woke up our younger two kids yelling at the TV, but it was worth it. It was worth it. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
It was a really exciting thing to see. I was probably just like you.
I say I was
screaming
probably
at the
also
TV,
screaming.
I'm like, I'm sure her reaction was just like, most of ours, where you're just screaming at the TV, but maybe it was a little bit different. I didn't cry, so at least we're there.
Screaming, jumping. I was at the Tampa game this year when he deflected the 2 point, and everyone's like, "How did you react?" And I was like, at first I didn't realize it was him, and then I was like, "Oh, that was my husband. That was Dre." And then I was like, "Oh my God, it was him." I don't know. I get tears strolling down my face a few times when he makes good plays, because I'm just so proud of him. So
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome just to hear kind of like how that relationship you guys have is together.
Mhm.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's yeah. You can be proud, but like I think might be a little overly proud. But
There's no
that's
such thing.
no, yeah, I like to believe that. But yeah, he definitely makes me a proud wife, and he's just, I'm just really proud of him, as to see the growth he's had. So
Absolutely.
So I have a question for you, just kind of
yeah.
like to build off that. So obviously you feel for them and you're excited for them when things are going well. Do you ever get kind of like nervous, since football is like such a high contact sport, about like their physical health or anything like that?
I do, yeah. I mean, I would be lying if I said I didn't worry about him. But the one thing about Devondre is he takes very good care of his body. Recovery is very important for him. So he is spending a lot of time during the season, and even during the off season, just taking care of his body, doing the research on certain things to help his body recover after games, helping his brain recover,
Mhm.
after games. So, we have a lot of things set up in our house that he does, nightly, after the games, before the games. So I do worry, but I feel like that's something that's out of my control. So I would much rather just take the trust in the recovery that he's doing daily and weekly. And, just hope for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say, like you said, that's all you can really do at that point.
Yeah, this his injury in Buffalo, I I was worried because really wasn't getting any answers. And till he finally texted me, it was like, I'm okay and I'm gonna be okay. It's just rough right now. So luckily, it nothing was torn, and hopefully we'll see him out there on Sunday.
I would love nothing more than that.
Me too.
Same.
What's something that you guys kind of do like fun with the family and stuff and like your off season?
Ooh, we like to travel. So our main thing is, our kids kind of miss out on dad during the season because sometimes most of the time he's gone before they wake up. Sometimes he'll get a half an hour before they have to go to sleep. But big on spending time with our kids. We do one family trip a year. Last year it was Disney. We won't be doing that again for a few years because that took a lot out
It's a
of us.
lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
with the 3 kiddos and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just traveling, family time, just kind of enjoying the time that we have together because during the season and during football, it's kind of put on the back burner. We do make time for each other during the season, but that's the priority. But just, we do a lot of family time trips. I take them to Nebraska.
Are you trying to get them to be a Nebraska fan?
Oh yeah, I tell my kids cheer go Bird Red all the time. My oldest is just the sweetest thing in the world, so she's like, I can cheer for Minnesota and Nebraska, and I'm like, fine,
Sure.
okay, but because she always, she's like, I'm your baby and daddy's baby. I'm like,
Oh.
fine. But I will dress them in Nebraska stuff a lot and Minnesota stuff here and there. But I do try to push it on them. But
Absolutely, you have to.
oh yeah, with him being in the house, a Gopher fan, it's not working and it's not working out.
Maybe one day, my son, he loves the Packers now. He's 3 and he finally understands and wants to watch football, and he yells every week, "Go Pack, go!" And if football's on, he's like, "Are we watching the Packers? The Packers are in green and yellow." And I'm like, "Well, these ones are blue." And so no, but he gets really excited about it. So I personally have just like always put him in Packer stuff. His family, his dad and his dad's family are all Chiefs fans, and I will not let that happen to my son.
No,
No.
I understand.
So.
Our son, he will break out and chant, "Go Pack, go! Go Pack, go!" just loud, and I'm like, oh wow. Until if football is on TV, he's like, "Daddy's football game is on," and I'm like, "Your dad is sitting right next to you." No, he is not on the TV, but he's really into football right now, obviously because of his dad. But I always tell him, I'm like, one day you're gonna wear an N on your helmet for Nebraska, and I'm like,
just
Sorry.
like whisper it in their ears, like when they're sleeping.
So it'll just build in there, and they don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty funny, but it makes the house fun.
It does. It definitely makes it more interesting. I question about your kids. Do you feel like they take more after you, or do they take after him more?
So our oldest is 100% me. And our middle one is 100% Devondre. And then our son is an equal part, I think, of both of us, which is kind of cool. But yeah, our oldest is me. Middle is definitely him.
That's awesome because that's the 2 girls, and then the boy has a little bit of both. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. Nicole, we really appreciate your time tonight and that you were so willing to do this for us. And we really look forward to hopefully seeing Dre on Sunday.
Yeah.
But again, thank you so much. And we will post that GoFundMe link so that way it's out there and people can, I'll actually go ahead and post it tonight, and then I'll post it again on Thursday whenever we post this video. But again, thank you so much for doing this with us, and we really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. I think it's always fun when women are doing this type of stuff. Now, if it would have been a group of men, I would have been like, absolutely not. You know, I think it's really cool that you guys are doing this. And I was like, of course I want, you know, totally out of my comfort zone because I don't do this. But, you know, I think it's pretty cool that you guys are doing it. So I was like,
Thank
yeah,
you.
let me see what I can do.
Well, thank you. You did fantastic for
Thank
being
you.
out of your comfort zone.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Cool. Well, thank you. It was nice to, I guess, meet you guys virtually. Maybe I'll run into you guys at a tailgate or something.
I'll
Yes,
be there
hopefully.
December 19th. I'll be there Monday night.
Okay. Well, then we will have to link up. We'll have to get together.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Nicole.
Bye.
Bye.